There is nothing more tantalising to the human species than a good mystery. Thrillers in the forms of novels, movies, and even campfire tales are often consumed by the thousands who love the adrenaline rush of solving a mystery. However, some of the most pervasive mysteries are those that occur in real life, and these are the ones that are often most difficult to solve. So today, here at Unexplained Mysteries, we'll be taking a look at mysterious discoveries. The Churro of India. Southeast Asia may not be the first place your mind wanders to when you think of hauntings. However, Asia is rich in fascinating culture and tradition, and from this comes some interesting ghost stories. You'd be forgiven for not knowing what the subject of our next story is. It's prominent in India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, and is a demonic, malevolent force taking the form of a woman. It's called a churro. The churro is described as the ghost of an impurified living thing, and is also known as the tree spirit as she tends to latch onto trees in the jungles of Asia. She allegedly takes the form of a beautiful woman, luring men she wants to revenge on into the woods only to take their lives or to take their vitality. The latter turns the men into much older beings. Churros are thought to come from women who have experienced an unnatural loss of life. This is often during pregnancy or childbirth, or from suffering at the hands of her in-laws. Often, churros will haunt the men of a certain family, as the spirit of the mistreated woman is related to them. The legend is thought to come from Persia, now Iran, where the churro forms from women who have lived an unsatisfactory life, or who have unfulfilled desires. Once appearing to men, again often in a jungle, the mountains, or other remote places, she removes her cloak of beauty to reveal a monstrous, gnarled appearance. The true form of the churro is a woman with a disfigured appearance. Depending on the country from which the legend originates, churros can have black tongues, no mouth at all, a face to resemble a pig, claw-like hands, and fangs. This is far from the stunning appearance of a young woman dressed all in white that the churro allegedly shapeshifts to. According to Asian folklore, one can prevent the creation of a churro by either preventing its creation by treating a woman well during pregnancy, or by performing a series of rituals upon the body once they have passed away. In some parts of Asia, the ground where the woman passed away is purified or dug up and treated with mustard, which keeps the churro content. The failure to do this leaves the churro roaming the graveyards, battlefields, mountains, and jungles of India and other South Asian countries. The many ghost sightings at Ye Olde Man and Scythe. Most hauntings, especially repeated sightings or spooky occurrences, revolve around a location with a history of loss of life, sickness, or a vengeful owner. Ye Olde Man and Scythe in Bolton, England, has a little bit of each of these qualifications, making it a prime candidate for the paranormal. It is one of the oldest pubs in Great Britain, dating back to at least 1251, making it almost 800 years old. The location has seen its fair share of ghosts and hauntings. It was rebuilt and has changed hands throughout the centuries. However, its most famous owner was likely the family of James Stanley, 7th Earl of Derby, in the 1600s. James Stanley was complicit in the siege of Bolton, which resulted in more than 1,000 residents being slaughtered in what came to be known as the Bolton Massacre. Stanley fled the area but was captured 7 years later in the Battle of Worcester and was brought back to the still angry residents of Bolton and faced losing his life due to his crimes. He was allowed to stay in the prayer room of his family pub in the hours before his execution as he awaited his fate. He was beheaded just outside the pub in the market square on October 15th, 1651, and it is said that he still haunts the cellar of Ye Olde Man and Scythe to this day. The chair that he supposedly sat in as he awaited his final moments is still inside the pub, adding to circulating rumours of Stanley's ghost haunting the premises. Although Stanley is the most famous ghost suspected of lingering on the premises, there is a long history of hauntings at the location. One set of paranormal experts recorded multiple voices with their ghost hunting equipment. Several amateur ghost hunters, as well as closed-circuit security footage, have also caught unsuspecting spirits lingering in doorways and around the property. In one instance, the owner of the property came in to open the pub and noticed that a single glass had been smashed on the floor. Suspicious, he went to check the security footage and found that the feed had inexplicably stopped at 6:18 a.m. The last thing visible on the video was a strange, ghostly figure appearing out of nowhere, which some believe to be Stanley himself. The owners of the pub have claimed that at least 25 restless spirits currently wander the property, among them a woman who is said to have hanged herself in the cellar several centuries ago, a small girl, and a phantom dog. Although many say the security footage was an easily pulled-off hoax, there is no doubt that the long history of battles, murders, and illnesses that the pub has lived through could mean that several ghosts still linger on the property, haunting visitors. Where is Genghis Khan's final resting place? Perhaps one of the greatest mountain mysteries of all is that of the burial site of the fabled warrior emperor of China, Genghis Khan. Khan is known for being the founder of the Mongol Empire, which, at its height, covered most of the Eurasian continent. His great success has often been shrouded in dark tales of the methods employed by his armies to conquer entire cities and countries in one fell swoop. It's estimated that millions of people fell at the hands of Khan the Conqueror, and his reign was stained with the blood of the fallen for all time. When Khan himself met his end, though, he made his wishes to be buried in an unmarked grave known to those closest to him. This was quite the departure from the emperor known for exalting himself as a god among men. This was in line, however, with the practices of the tribe he was born into. Khan met his end on August 18th, 1227. He had lived to the old age of 65. While the manner of death is disputed, the date is not. After he died, his body was returned to his birthplace in Mongolia near the Khenti Mountains. The Onon River runs through this area, and many historians have theorized that Khan was buried under the river so that his tomb would never be found. This would align with the legends of kings before him, like the Sumerian king Gilgamesh. The real tragedy and mystery, however, is the sheer amount of people who were chosen to go with him on his journey to the afterlife. These sacrifices were made to ensure that no one alive would ever know where the emperor was buried. Horrific tales were told of the slaves who built the tomb and how they were forced to join Genghis Khan in the same tomb that they had constructed. Additional legends tell tales of entire armies of men sent to protect his tomb, also meeting their untimely end when their watch was concluded, in an effort to protect the location of the emperor's body. The Genghis Khan Mausoleum, located in northern China, was constructed many years later to offer those wishing to worship the great conqueror a place to do so, and to dissuade future attempts at finding his final resting place. Stone circle dating to the Bronze Age found hidden in the British Forest of Dean. The Forest of Dean is probably one of the most known woodlands in Britain. It lies in the midst of Gloucestershire in the southwest of England. It is a wild and deep woodland, and in that wilderness, a Bronze Age monument has been found with the use of an air laser scan called LiDAR. The monument is known as a ring cairn and is roughly 4,000 years old. The ring cairn is a circular bank adorned with limestone stones and is 80 foot in diameter and 16 feet wide. It is an extraordinarily unique site with only one known like it in Gloucestershire. John Hoyle, a known archaeologist, claims it to be a very significant discovery. Hoyle initially believed the laser scan's data revealed a 1940s weapon emplacement, but after they realised the secret site near the village of Tiddenham was older than they first considered, it became clear they were dealing with something ancient. Hoyle commented, "It was very exciting. I was expecting to find quite a lot of new sites with LiDAR, but nothing as interesting as this. The LiDAR technology senses distances with a light laser, and is able to analyze what is reflected back at it in order to create 3D models of the landscape, and has been commonly used in archaeological findings of lost Mayan cities. Archaeologists involved in the project have confessed their lack of knowledge concerning the ring cairn's purpose, though theories suggest them being involved with burials and cremations. Out of a desire to preserve the location from any vandalism, the archaeologists have kept the location secret even now, refusing to exactly explain where it lies, as they fear attracting visitors will result in irreversible harm befalling the ring cairn. There is also a potential for illegal treasure hunters to take precious items from the area. Furthermore, Hoyle explained he believes that the rubble bank was the main area of the structure when it was still in use, with the limestones used as standing stones. It is possible that this was a pyre upon which bodies of the departed were ceremoniously burned. However, these structures are rare in Britain, and we know very little about their origins. Other places where the ring cairns have been previously found is Derbyshire and Cornwall, both of which are in England, but there have been some ring cairns discovered in both Ireland and Wales. The current leading theory is that one particular community or culture left these behind in their wake as they traversed the British Isles. The truth is out there somewhere, currently unknown to us. We do not know what the future will bring, but it will surely reveal truths of old. As technology advances, we can merely hope that it brings answers. The Old Alton Bridge. Texas has a rich all-American history concerning slavery and Southern life. The legend of the Old Alton Bridge is a testament to this history, as the ghost of a former black farmer haunts this iron truss span. The Old Alton Bridge is beautifully and historically constructed for foot traffic connecting Denton, Texas to Copper Canyon. It hovers over a muggy river and is surrounded by luscious green trees and grass. It was originally crafted to bring horses and cars to the other side of the river, but it is now unsuitable for modern vehicles. A nearby bridge was built to allow bigger rigs to pass through instead. However, its beauty doesn't match its dreadful history. The bridge has been nicknamed Goatman's Bridge, after a successful black goat farmer. Oscar Washburn was killed by the Ku Klux Klan in 1938. The Washburn family resided in the area in the early 1930s and was generally left alone and even respected by the rest of the community. They were a prosperous family as they raised healthy resale goats that were necessary for farming at the time. Because the Ku Klux Klan ran rampant in Texas and other southern states, it was very dangerous for black people to be successful either financially or socially in the early 20th century. The KKK got wind of the Washburn family's success because of a promotional sign hung by the Old Alton Bridge and were enraged. One night in 1938, the Klansmen raced across the bridge to drag Oscar from his home and bring him to the Old Alton Bridge to be hanged. They wrapped a noose around his neck and hung him from the iron bridge over the water for the entire community to see. The legend remarks that the Klansmen went back for the rest of the Washburn family but murdered them in their home rather than lynching them alongside Oscar. Although lynching was a common method of disposal for Confederates at the time, nobody could have predicted what was going to happen next. When the Klansmen went to see if Washburn was truly dead, his body had disappeared without a trace. Visitors and residents of the area claim that Oscar Washburn's ghost still haunts the Old Alton Bridge. Visiting the bridge at night has brought all sorts of outlandish stories to light. Some people have reported seeing a man standing at the other side of the bridge holding goats' heads underneath his arms, or even a half-man, half-goat figure staring back at them. Others have reported more subtle incidents of their car doors locking and unlocking unprompted. Even if visitors don't see the goatman himself, they have reported seeing red glowing eyes in the distance. Tourists and visitors have concluded that knocking on the bridge 3 times at night summons the ghost of Oscar Washburn immediately. The mystery of Marion Lynn Carver. In 2004, Marion Lynn Carver took a vacation cruise liner from Seattle, Washington to Vancouver, British Columbia. She boarded the ship on August 27th, but was last seen by her cabin attendant the next day. She never got off at any of the 4 stops along the way and did not board her return flight home to Boston, Massachusetts. She has been considered missing since then, despite years of her family searching for her. Carver was a 40-year-old single mother to one daughter. She had secretly booked a celebrity cruise trip for herself and left without telling any of her family members. Her father first reported her missing on September 7th, after her daughter called him asking for her mother's whereabouts. The police only realized she had left for a cruise after looking into her credit card records. The cruise line never reported her missing, despite constant memos from her attendant. He had noticed that her bed had not been slept in on the first night, but was ordered to ignore it and clean the room as usual. He submitted 5 notices to his supervisor about Carver's absence, but was told that someone else would handle it. The supervisor gathered Carver's belongings, but did not attempt to notify police or search for the missing passenger. The cruise line only reported Carver's disappearance after her father reached out to them. By then, the supervisor had already donated most of her possessions and only kept her purse and documents in storage. As per the cruise line's regulations, missing passengers must be reported, so Celebrity Cruises immediately fired this employee. Nonetheless, the cruise line was unhelpful in the search for Carver. They claimed her disappearance was most likely due to jumping overboard and did not attempt to investigate. It took nearly a month from her first disappearance for the family to learn that she had booked a cruise and an additional 3 days for the voyage to confirm that she was a passenger. Despite pleas from the father and personal investigators, Celebrity Cruise barely helped in the investigation. They claimed to delete surveillance footage after a few days, even though they kept it for 30 days. When the father asked for it, they ended up accidentally deleting the footage. He ended up hiring private investigators to try and figure out what happened to his daughter, spending over the next few years nearly $75,000. Carver's father had so much frustration with the investigation and cruise line that he ended up suing the company over her disappearance and lack of action. He founded the International Cruise Victims Organization in 2006 and constantly lobbied Congress to enact laws and regulations to hold cruise ships responsible for accidents and loss of life. He became the leading campaigner for cruise ship safety, initiating the Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act of 2010. He was even awarded the Ronald Wilson Reagan Public Policy Award from the U.S. Department of Justice in 2017 for his work. Despite all of his hard work and dedication to the safety of cruise ship passengers, he never learned the truth of what happened to his daughter. Carver's father died in December 2019 at 83 years old, with her case still unsolved. The chilling disappearance of Sammy Bulker. Vacations are supposed to be abundant with family fun and timeless memories, but for a certain family, a would-be exciting trip turned into a living nightmare. Sammy Bulker was an 8-year-old boy and the son of Kenneth Bulker. When talking about his son, Kenneth described him as a passionate but stubborn young boy who was on the high-functioning side of the autistic spectrum, which resulted in Sammy being easily overwhelmed by brightness and sound. The boy stood at 4 feet and 11 inches in height and weighed an estimated 85 pounds. He had dark eyes and brown hair cut in a short hairstyle. The family was staying in a cabin near Diamond Lake when the tragedy occurred. He disappeared in October. The Bulker family had prior camping experience, and Sammy grew up learning important survival tricks, but no amount of teaching could ensure a vulnerable child's survival in the vast wilderness of Oregon. Kenneth and Sammy went out to play a game of either tag or hide and seek at around 4 in the afternoon. The reason for this roadside game is unknown, and Kenneth's motives have since been suspected as impure. The father and child played until Sammy spotted a radiant shade of yellow peeking out from the ground, believing it to be gold. Due to the autumn period, it was already getting dark, and Kenneth wanted to go to their cabin, heading off to the cinder slope where they had been playing moments prior. As Kenneth Bulker went to his car, he assumed his son would follow, but he did not. Instead, Sammy vehemently refused to leave or even step off the cinder slope and began running away from his father when he tried to chase after him. It is assumed that Sammy believed Kenneth was just playing with him. After the fact, Kenneth stated, "I never caught up with him, and at that point, he disappeared over the top somewhere, and I lost him." After Sammy's disappearance was reported, over 200 people helped
with the area's search for the boy, travelling and combing a total area of 4,000 acres. An entire week passed by with trained dogs and even the use of helicopters, but it was to no avail. Never again would Sammy be seen by anyone. Kenneth's story has been criticised by police and speculators alike. It seems suspicious that a young autistic boy seemed to suddenly run from his father and disappear in plain sight by running straight into the wilderness without any other witnesses. However, no proof of foul play was ever discovered.
The unsolved disappearance of Thomas Nuzzy. Thomas Nuzzy's family has been searching for him for the last decade after he mysteriously vanished on June 18, 2001. He was last seen by friends 3 days prior and was finally reported missing after failing to show up to work in Bethel, Alaska on the 19th. The last image of him was taken on the 18th at a gasoline station near the Super 8 Hotel on Minnesota Drive in Anchorage, where he was staying. Authorities found a receipt that showed Nuzzy had purchased chips, soda, 2 lighters, and a pack of cigarettes at the gas station at 9:47 p.m. He was never seen or heard from after this. Police believe Nuzzy was on foot when he disappeared, since his Jeep Cherokee was found 12 miles outside of the city at the Alpenglow ski area in Chugach State Park, and his bicycle was at his unlocked storage unit. Apparently, on June 15th, a woman and another man attempted to break into Nuzzy's car at the hotel, as reported by a security guard. The woman was also captured on the surveillance camera standing next to Nuzzy at the gas station. On his last known day, the same couple was once again spotted breaking into the Jeep. This time, the man was successful and drove off with the car. The following day, the day Nuzzy was reported as missing, a housekeeper of the hotel saw a man on Nuzzy's hotel room floor. When she came back later in the afternoon, the same man was sitting on the bed. He was not Nuzzy, and she made him leave the room. Police consider the couple as persons of interest to the case, but have not been identified or seen since. The woman is small, about 5 foot 2 inches and 105 pounds, Caucasian with medium long dark hair and possibly in her 20s. The man is dark-skinned, tall, thin, and has decaying teeth. They are suspected of having used Nuzzy's phone since all the recent calls on his phone were traced to unknown numbers. Many of the numbers are connected to motels, pages, and a halfway house. Nuzzy's nephew called back every single call, missed, dialed, or received, but none of the people who answered him had ever heard of his uncle before. Despite an extensive search for clues by authorities, they were unable to turn up any evidence or leads to Nuzzy's disappearance. He lived a quiet and reclusive life, working as a registered nurse and often travelling around the state for his employment. Because of this, he did not even have a permanent address and opted to live out of hotels. He has never been seen since that day, and his case remains unsolved. Craig Freer. In 2004, a high school student from New York went missing at just 17 years old. The young lad had been visiting a friend where he was consoled about a recent breakup. Whilst he had clearly been upset about him and his girlfriend, he reportedly did not give any indication that he may run away, nor did he say anything to suggest he would cause himself harm. This seemed a run-of-the-mill teenage breakup, at least until leaving his friend's house and walking into the woods. He never arrived back home. Adding to the distress in the boy's life, the day of his disappearance, his parents found out he lost his part-time job at the Price Chopper supermarket weeks prior. Craig had been pretending to show up and complete his shifts so that his parents would not find out he had been let off. His wallet and $40 in cash were found in his bedroom, just one of the reasons authorities do not believe Craig ran away or left of his own will. He had not applied for a job in the US, opened a bank account, or paid taxes since he was last seen, evident through the lack of activity surrounding his social security number. Craig lost his driver's license before his disappearance and did not get another before he went missing. Craig did not have a criminal record, any known behavioral issues, or enemies. He was in fact a popular, bright student when in high school and had plans to study elementary education at college. However, Before he went missing, some friends and family described him as acting secretive. Furthermore, Craig had run away once before, though only for a night, as an early teenager. 16 years on, and there continues to be a Facebook group searching for him, with friends and family actively looking for him. To this day, Craig Frere's case remains open, unsolved, and with no new leads. Timothy "Tim" Barnes disappearance. The USA's national parks are notorious for mysterious disappearances. There are literally hundreds of missing persons cases across practically all national parks in the USA. United States national parks have had many disappearances in which the circumstances are so mysterious that there have been entire groups and websites set up to try and solve these mysteries. The Missing 411 is the name given to the group of people that have disappeared in mysterious circumstances in national parks, large rural areas, or a large reserve. What is bizarre about the Missing 411 is that these disappearances take place in busy national parks with a lot of foot traffic, so for someone to disappear in these busy areas without a trace is mysterious. So we are going to be talking about a specific disappearance that has been classified into the Missing 411, and that individual is Timothy "Tim" Barnes. Back in July 1988, Timothy Barnes left his California home at around 9 a.m. and had initially planned on hiking the Polydome Lakes of Yosemite National Park and returning home later the same day. After he did not return home that evening, his friends waited until the morning to report him missing and informed Yosemite Park rangers. Over the next 7 days, an extensive search of the area was carried out. There were over 70 people, a team of dogs, and 2 helicopters. It is very hard to believe that after that amount of time, with that many resources, that there was not one shred of evidence relating to Timothy Barnes. The fact that absolutely nothing was found is bizarre. The reported area in which Timothy Barnes went missing has been an area in which at least 3 other people have reportedly disappeared without a trace. This has led to people labeling the area a hotspot and have pointed out a geographical correlation between these specific disappearances. John Briscas' disappearance. Sometimes even fame cannot protect you from the horrors of the world, as was the case with professional basketball player John Brisca. Brisca was an American NBA player playing for the University of Toledo and then moving on to the Pittsburgh Pipers, Pittsburgh Condors, and Seattle Supersonics. Although a skilled player, he quickly gained a reputation as an explosive and volatile athlete. His teammates reported being frequently frightened by his aggressive, occasionally threatening demeanor, and his willingness to pick fights even during a professional game earned him the nickname the heavyweight champion of the ABA. In one game, he was ejected for fighting after only 2 minutes and attempted to charge back onto the court so many times that he was threatened with arrest unless he went to the locker rooms for the remainder of the game. He was an excellent player, but say something wrong to the guy and you had this feeling he would reach into his bag, take out a firearm and shoot you, remembered Charlie Williams, one of his teammates with the Pittsburgh Condors. It might seem difficult for such a blazing, fiery 6'5" personality to simply disappear without a trace, but that is exactly what happened to Brisca. In March of 1978, after he had been out of the NBA for 3 years and his career seemed to be winding down, he embarked on what appeared to be a business trip to Uganda. He had a 1-month-old daughter with his girlfriend and was interested in establishing a more stable way to provide for his family through launching an import-export business. He called his girlfriend, who was still in Seattle, on April 11th, and that was the last anyone ever heard from the former NBA athlete. Authorities have virtually no information to go off, although Brisca's former teammates and fans have spawned many legends and rumors based on the belief that he might have become a mercenary that met a bad end or had got involved in the Ugandan coup. However, the truth is that nobody has any idea what really happened to him. Although he was declared deceased in order to settle his estate, it is not even certain that he ever arrived in Africa at all. His communication during his absence was spotty and lacked any information that might have helped authorities in either country locate him, and a spokesperson for the FBI in Seattle has said that essentially we don't consider him deceased. The case has been cold ever since, and the lack of even one single lead has been incredibly frustrating for those hoping to receive some closure regarding the fate of the former star. The mystery behind the disappearance has garnered a small following, and many individuals have spent countless hours attempting to track down Briscas, but it truly appears that he vanished without a trace, meaning that he either perished somewhere in Uganda or is alive and well somewhere in the world, but just does not want to be found. The disappearance of Matthew Green. Matthew Green was a beloved maths teacher in Nazareth and an outdoor enthusiast who was last seen in 2013 in the Mammoth Lakes area. Green was hiking with friends in the region and staying at the Shady Rest campground. Due to car trouble, he was unable to join his friends on a trail and instead agreed to stay behind while his car was repaired and then meet up with them down the line. That day, he called the car repair shop and his parents to inform them that he was spending one more day in the mountains and texted friends in the evening. Green was never seen or heard from after this. When his friends returned to find his car had been fixed and waiting for him for over a week, they contacted the Mammoth Lake Police Department. Green had told his parents he was spending a day in the mountains in his final phone call, but he had not specified where. Green's loved ones started looking at the evidence at hand to predict where he had headed. Green had previously mentioned wanting to climb on glacier ice and had a habit of tearing out pages from his guidebook for the adventures he was pursuing. The pages missing were the rugged and icy terrain around Mount Ritter. Pouncing on this new lead, several of Green's friends and family flew to California and canvassed the area, even hiring a private plane to shoot high-resolution videos over the land. Despite best efforts, there was no sighting of Green, and a Pennsylvanian judge declared him dead 4 days after his disappearance. Hopes were raised when a pair of eyeglasses, strikingly similar to the ones worn by Green, were found by a hiker in the Inyo Craters region, but these were later confirmed not to be Green's. With little evidence and no body ever found, Green's fate remains a mystery. His family and friends mostly believe that Green was injured on the trail and either died immediately or eventually succumbed to the elements. Mount Ritter is an extremely challenging terrain, likened to climbing a stack of crackers, that even the most experienced climber would struggle on. With peaks reaching 13,000 feet, any misstep of Green's would have resulted in a fall which would almost certainly have killed him. However, Green was known to be an experienced and cautious mountaineer. Aware of the hardship of the trail, he would have been extra careful and critical in his movements, and if he thought the situation was getting too difficult, he would have turned back. This doubt has led Green's sister to wonder whether her brother was actually a victim of foul play. Green might have hitched a ride from another given his car had broken down, or had a run-in with the workers in the car repair shop. Sadly, Green's family and friends have never been given closure to the case of what happened to the popular maths teacher. They continue to use the Find Matthew Green Facebook page for any further updates. The disappearance of Mel Wiley. Police Chief Mel Wiley was last seen on July 27, 1985, on a date with his girlfriend in Hinckley Township, a suburb of Cleveland. His car was found on July 30th at Lakefront State Park on Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio. Police performed a thorough search of the area and found no sign of Wiley. After searching his car, which was still locked, they found his wallet with $15 in cash, his police ID and badge, some sunscreen, a pack of cigarettes, and a beach towel. After performing an investigation among Wiley's friends, family, and co-workers, authorities ruled out the possibility of foul play. Wiley left work early a lot and seemed moody in the weeks before his disappearance. His friends believed that he had grown tired of his job but did not think anything of it. He had always wanted to retire at 50, so he could write full-time, but he ended up disappearing 3 years before retirement. In his spare time, Wiley wrote poetry and was a thriller mystery novelist. Before his disappearance, he was writing a novel about a homicide in Pennsylvania that he often spoke of to anyone that would listen. When police entered Wiley's home, it was spotless, and he had also left several days of food and water out for his 2 cats. After an extensive search through his belongings, his thriller manuscript was nowhere to be found. Other missing things were stamps, envelopes, his music collection, typewriter paper, and an address book. Most of his long-sleeve shirts were missing, which he frequently wore to cover the burns on his arms that he had suffered while serving in the military. The only thing left in his fridge was a jar of mayonnaise. The police later found out that his desk at the police station was empty as well, except for a key to his apartment. At this point, it was as if Wiley had merely vanished into thin air, but after picking up his dry cleaning, police found the first of many strange clues. Located in the pocket of his police uniform were bus schedules from Cleveland to San Francisco. Wiley had written a letter to a female friend before his disappearance. He had expressed that he wanted to disappear and was tired of his life in Hinckley. The letter stated that he would be 2,500 miles away when his friend would receive his letter, roughly the distance between Cleveland and San Francisco. Police were able to decipher the letter by looking at the ribbon on his office typewriter. Investigators were never able to track down the original letter, and it appears that the friend never received it. As a police chief, Mel had access to all he would need to form a new identity directly at his fingertips. With access to a database of fingerprints and social security information, it is entirely possible that Mel leveraged his years in law enforcement to facilitate his disappearance. With his military background and several years in law enforcement, he would also know how to stay off the radar. Mel was the only suspect in his own case. He was declared legally deceased in 1993 per Ohio law, once he had been missing for 5 years. Mel could very well be enjoying his remaining years writing poetry and novels on the West Coast today. Having a passion for writing mysteries, Wiley's most tremendous story appears to have been the one of his own disappearance. The High Aim 6. The High Aim 6 was a fishing ship that set course from the South Taiwanese port of Liuxiu in October of 2002. When it was seen again on Australian waters in 2003, it was found abandoned without a single crew member or body in sight. Sai Huang Shuai, the ship's official owner, had the last communication with the ship's captain in late December of 2002. The Taiwanese ship flew under an Indonesian flag. One of the only traceable surviving crew members from Indonesia admitted that Chen Tai Cheng, the High Aim 6's captain, had his life taken from him alongside the ship's primary engineer, Ling Chung Li. But the details remain murky and unsolved, with no real motive or culprit established. The High Aim 6 was discovered floating on stable, gentle waters about 92 miles from the Rowley Shoals of Australia, devoid of any signs of its previous crew members, and initially there was no clear explanation for the crew's abandonment of the ship, nor for their disappearances. In fact, not a single sign of distress of any kind was detected in the initial search of the ship. Everything remained in pristine condition, including the sailors' personal belongings, being neatly tucked away without any sign of a panic or hurry. Fuel and provisions were plentiful, and the High Aim 6 had adequate long-line fishing equipment on board. Further investigations revealed that the High Aim 6's engine was not working and that the rudder was broken. The Taiwanese police believed that mutiny led to the ship's abandonment. The Indonesian police managed to track down one of 10 Indonesian men hired as crew members on the High Aim 6, who revealed the captain's life was taken from him, along with the engineer, on December 8, 2002, and so proceeded to escape home to Indonesia, but refused to reveal motives or further statements around the alleged happenings. Similar events have occurred in the past, with Indonesian crew members, captains and engineers being taken of Taiwanese ships, such as the Harisheng 6 the previous year. Peggy the Doll. Some dolls can be extremely creepy objects, especially when they're mentioned in the context of horror. Who would ever want to see the Annabelle doll sitting in their bedroom in the middle of the night, for example? Well, as it turns out, it wasn't just the Devil's Chair that was causing havoc at Zach Bagans' museum. Zach has recently added the infamous Peggy the Doll to his collection, which he obtained from its previous owner Jane Harris in England. It is rumoured that you can be affected by Peggy the Doll just by looking at her, whether in a photograph or in real life. The doll has an undeniably twisted past. Peggy is thought to embody the spirit of a woman who died of a chest-related condition. The woman in question was said to have been born in London in 1946, and psychics have speculated that she could be of Jewish descent, as well as potentially having a connection with the Holocaust. Peggy's effects on people have been to the extreme of causing migraines to chest pains to even affecting the person's dreams. The Deadly Possessions TV show film crew felt these effects profoundly when they visited Peggy. Baggins himself said that flies manifested out of nowhere and swarmed me, and then I had a dark energy overcome me. I interviewed a woman who told me while crying she suffered a heart attack within seconds of looking at her. Anybody who wishes to view the doll at Baggins Museum even has to sign a disclaimer due to the severity of the doll's power. Now, this could all be an elaborate hoax or simply coincidental. Although demonic possession is not recognized or supported by science, there are many people who are convinced that Peggy is the embodiment of a twisted, unearthly spirit that needs to be locked safely away. Perhaps the museum is the safest place for Peggy the Doll to reside, for now. One thing we can be certain of is you would most definitely not want to play with her. But what do you make of these mysteries and disappearances? Be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comment section below and help us by growing this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.